Hello Bio. This is Mr. B. We're continuing on with Chapter 4, Section 2, What Shapes an Ecosystem. So we looked at all the different relationships that organisms had last time, and now we're going to take a look at a new phenomenon that's known as ecological succession. So it's going to be basically how ecosystems can change over time. And so ecosystems are constantly changing in response to natural and human disturbances. So that's mean that they can be destroyed by anything that caused by nature, like a tornado, a volcano going off, a flood, or a human disturbance. And a human disturbance would be something like, let's say, dumping pollution, oil, things like that, mining. So things that could really caused by humans that could destroy an ecosystem. And as an ecosystem changes, older inhabitants will gradually die out and new organisms move in, causing further changes in the community. So it's just almost like newer, younger kids moving in, taking over a community. It happens with animals as well. And so giving an actual definition of ecological succession, it is the series of predictable changes that occurs in a community over time. So it's just the fact that we know communities are going to change. It's just a fact of life, and so we have it called a term for it, ecological succession. And sometimes an ecosystem will change in response to an abrupt disturbance. So that could that just be all of a sudden a volcano goes off, and that's an abrupt change in our ecosystem. Other times, changes occur as a more gradual response to natural fluctuations in the environment, and that could be just, let's say, a rising water level in a certain area over a span of 10 to 15 years. An ecosystem could change, and it's probably have to be even a longer time frame than that for there to actually be a change. And so we're going to have two types of succession. The first one would occur on land, and it's succession that occurs on surfaces where no soil exists, and that's going to call primary succession. And that's going to be, for example, it is going to occur on rock surfaces formed after volcanoes erupt. So that's kind of been alluding to this before. And so the first species that are going to populate the area right after the volcanoes erupt, they're called the pioneer species. So we're going to give an example of how primary succession would occur. So in this example, we have a volcanic eruption that has destroyed our previous ecosystem. So we used to have an ecosystem there, now we just have barren rock. Then in our second step, we have the first organism to appear are lichens. So lichens are just almost like a little moss type thing that almost just look like a crust growing on the rock. So that would be our pioneer species because it's the first species to show up. And then our next one are mosses, and they soon appear, and grasses take root in the thin layer of soil. So now we actually have a layer of soil developing in this third step here, and we have mosses and grasses that are coming along with our lichens as well. Again, we just started with those barren rocks, and now things are coming back. And then eventually tree seedlings and shrubs will sprout among the plant community, and then eventually this will provide home for organisms who originally had lost their home due to that volcanic eruption. So that is a primary succession. So our next one is secondary succession, and this is how it occurs when components of the ecosystem can be changed by natural events, such as fires. And then when the disturbance is over, community interactions tend to restore the ecosystem to its original condition through secondary succession. So just a fire is just a naturally occurring event, and it really is not actually overly devastating. Sometimes fires are actually needed in order to kind of help wipe out maybe one species that's taken over too much in order to restore an ecosystem to what it should be, and that occurs in secondary succession. And then healthy ecosystems will usually recover from natural disturbances like the fires, but they may not recover from long-term human-caused disturbances. So if we're mining in an area or drilling for oil in an area for too long, we could completely destroy the area where no organisms would ever be able to inhabit it again. So that's primary and secondary succession, and both of those occur on land. And so now we have to look at an example of how succession can occur in a marine ecosystem. And this can occur in any ecosystem, even in the permanently dark deep ocean. So again, land is not the only place where it can occur. And in 1987, scientists documented an unusual community of organisms that actually lived on the remains of a dead whale. So this whale actually came down or died, and it actually gave home to a variety of kind of unusual organisms. And the community illustrates the stages in the succession of a whale fall community, and it's called a whale fall community because a whale fell down to the bottom of the ocean. So succession will begin when the whale dies and it sinks to the ocean floor. So that's obviously step one, and then you can see we have a variety of organisms coming to live in here to eat on the whale. Again, whales are huge, so it's going to provide a lot of food for a lot of different things. And then within a year, most of the whale's tissues have been eaten by scavengers or detrivores and decomposers. So now we're down to just this kind of shell of skeleton of the whale. And then the decomposition or the decomposing of the whale's body will enrich the surrounding sediments with nutrients. And when only the skeleton remains, heterotrophic bacteria will decompose the oils in the whale bones, and this releases compounds that serve as energy sources for some chemosynthetic autotrophs, so autotrophs that don't need the sun. And then the chemosynthetic bacteria support a diverse community of organisms. So that kind of whole different group of organisms, they will come together and live just when one whale happened to die. So it's a pretty interesting case there. So that's it for section 2. Let me know if you have any questions.